Hi guys, so there's a real crisis at the moment, a cost of living one. Household items are becoming more and more expensive, food prices are rising, and the cost of energy too. Martin Lewis, a money saving expert, was invited onto the BBC to explain how this year is going to be even more difficult for people already struggling. He said that he's out of tools to help people and that government intervention is required. But considering what Rishi Sunak has delivered so far has not put a dent in the crisis, what else is on the table?
Look at the fact that just on energy alone, on a conservative estimate within 1 year, we're talking £1,300 a year going up in bills. We're going to have about 10 million people in fuel poverty. We have a real absolute, not relative poverty issue going to come in the UK with food banks oversubscribed, with debt crisis agencies do not have any tools. And I need to say, with the Chancellor coming on in a moment, if you forgive me, as the money-saving expert who's been known for this, I am virtually out of tools to help people now. It's not something money management can fix. It's not something for those on the lowest incomes telling them to cut their belts will work. We need political intervention. Look at the
Political intervention. So it's not a case of just tinkering around the edges. Real change needs to take place. Now, I don't know where I found this graphic, but I think it is accurate. It says here, I don't know who produced this graphic, but I think it's accurate. It says here 2021, 2022 and 2022, 2023. And you can see here the overall cost of energy jumping from 1,200 to 3,000. That's made up of costs such as distribution costs, billing and customer service, green and other levies, VAT paid to the government, distribution of company profit, cost of production bought in energy, and then profit made by energy production company. And you can see the profit at the bottom, 43 jumping to 1,717. Now, people on the right will say, well, get rid of the green levy and everything will be fine. Well, that's not the case, because if you look at, yes, getting rid of the green levy will reduce the cost to the consumer somewhat, but that's not where all the money is going. And this is green and other levies. So there are other levies here. These are things that, reducing VAT, the government can do that. But if the government were to nationalize the energy companies, they could set the price themselves. So because it's a private company providing this energy, they get to decide how much they're going to charge. If it was nationalized, the government could say, we're going to put this price on it. But I don't think Rishi Sunak wants to go down that road. And when it comes to Rishi Sunak, and I've said this before, he doesn't understand this crisis because he's not suffering it. He's not suffering himself. And further to that, how can you actually deal with the crisis if you don't believe one really exists? Wait till you hear this. This was him just after Martin Lewis was on.
So your actions are going to stop more people falling into fuel poverty? Is that what you're saying?
I think the actions of this government and previous Conservative governments over the last 10 years have meant that there are fewer people living in poverty today, over 1 million people fewer living in poverty today.
So you're not expecting a rise in people? You're not expecting...
There are fewer people living in poverty. How can you sit there and say that? I've used this graph before. This is the number of people receiving 3 days worth of emergency food from just one charity, okay? And you can see over the last 10 years, if we go back to 2010, 2011, 61,000 people were relying on food banks. In 2020, 2021, that rose to 2.5 million. Now, I imagine in 2022 it's even higher. The cost of living crisis is going to drive more and more people into relying on food banks. More and more pressure put on food banks. And these food banks are struggling as well. So how can the Chancellor turn around and say, yes, there are fewer people in poverty, while there are more and more people relying on food bank? Now, of course, the definition of poverty he's using is, well, there are fewer people who are going hungry, who don't have a roof over their head, because we have provided support. But more and more people are relying on food banks. That means that there is more and more poverty. More people are in poverty. If you use a different definition of poverty, then yes, there are fewer people in poverty. But the reality is more and more people who are working, more and more people who are on universal credit, more and more people who have jobs, multiple jobs, are relying on food banks, which should not be the case. So, as I said before, Rishi Sunak is married to the daughter of a billionaire. He probably doesn't understand what it's like to struggle to pay the bills. He definitely doesn't know what it's like to have to rely on a food bank in order to feed your family. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think about all of this. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.